Ah, man,
Wait,
got
hey,
the
everybody.
chunky sound effects.
But it opens with a
Back
lightsaber
with
sound effect?
more. Kinda, I don't know. That was just
There's
the
no lightsabers in
LucasArts
this
thing
game,
of the
right?
day.
Lightsabers are the subtext of any Star Wars game.
So, this is TIE Fighter. I'm Josh, and Chris, Alex, and Rutskarn are back with me for more Star Wars games. TIE Fighter is the sequel to X-Wing, where you are playing as the Empire, which
But
was an
Josh,
interesting choice.
We just played X-Wing. What is there different about TIE Fighter?
As it turns out, a whole lot. This game kind of perfected the formula that was originally put forth by X-Wing, so there's a lot of stuff in this game that just works a hell of a lot better than in X-Wing it ever did. And it allows it to get a lot more complex in terms of storyline and plot and stuff like that, so...
And what a unique perspective to have the villains at the forefront of the narrative. I don't think Star Wars does that enough.
It'd be hard to do now that the first... Well, I mean, like, okay, so like the...
I'm being sarcastic, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
They do it a lot. They sympathize with their villains a lot. It's just something that they've done early.
There are, what if I told you there are entire cosplay groups dedicated to dressing up as Imperial stormtroopers and holding parades and stuff.
501st shout out. Hey, don't shit on the 501st. They all operate out of charity, out of donation.
Yeah, that is true.
So if you want them to show up, you donate to the charity instead of paying them.
Someone actually told me, who has personal experience, told me that the 501st is like a snake pit, though. Like, it's one of those, like... It's one of those groups where there's a shitload of drama going on behind the scenes, and some of it is really quite shocking.
Thrawn! Is that Thrawn? I don't know what Thrawn is.
You mean a group of cosplayers creating drama? What?
Wait, are you serious?
Yes, that's Thrawn.
Yeah,
I thought Thrawn was like a space god.
Huh?
No? What?
He's a regular guy.
No, Thrawn is an Imperial admiral. He's a major character in this game.
If you ever want to get, like, a bunch of old school, like, grognard Star Wars fans mad, just go over and say something like, man, I tried to read some of those Thrawn books, and they're so stupid. I'm so glad they're no longer canon.
Oh, my God. Because that's what we all need, is more Star Wars nerds, like, getting more mad at things.
Well, that's, like, one of the... Okay, so I want to say firstly that there's nothing wrong with liking the Thrawn books. I haven't read them, but I know a lot of people say they're really good, and they were, I think, an example of a transformative work. Okay, yeah, there you go. A transformative work that expanded the canon of something that was like kind of like pulpy into something that was like a little bit more like, here's like these intrigues and these tactics. It was like the way it was described to me is it's kind of like if Ender's Game was Star Wars branded.
Yeah,
like
that's
it has
a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah, and so there's kind of a thing where simultaneously people really love Thrawn, but there's really not much of a market for Thrawn.
Yeah, I think Thrawn is actually, like, the biggest problem with Thrawn is how good he is at everything. So, like, it sometimes becomes unbelievable that he would ever lose, because it just kind of feels like, oh, this guy's the guy that knows everything.
Are you saying that Thrawn is a Mary Sue?
Thrawn, yeah.
The original Star Wars Mary Sue?
But the thing is also that, like, the Thrawn books deal with the immediate after effects of Return of the Jedi, including Leia becoming extremely badass, which, and my theory is always, like, if they were to actually... They can't do Thrawn because, like, there's too many cool characters that they can't do anymore because they've already kind of, like, overwritten their coolness with less cool things. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, they have brought Thrawn back into the canon. He's in the Star
But I don't
Wars
even give a
Rebels
shit
show.
about, like, Thrawn. People talk about Thrawn way too much as a character in the Thrawn series when there's, like, so many other cool things going on as well.
Yeah.
But again, like, that's because like Thrawn is like the badass cool dude, and like most Star Wars fans are into the like badass cool dude and less of the badass cool women that could have been.
They actually named a character Dimok, like from Star Trek.
Demok is actually the name of a group of people, so he's just the Demok person that plays in that. So,
by the way, I just want to point out that this game came
here.
Before we get too far in here, I want to point out that this game came out only a year after the last one.
Yeah.
Another year, another Star Wars game.
Am I right, folks? I don't think they saw it that way somehow.
Enter your name, pilot.
So, so this is, same sort of thing that we had in X-Wing, where you make a pilot. Who is Rutskarn's evil twin?
Gary.
Oh, I said who it was.
Rutskarn backwards?
I don't remember now.
Like in Kingdom Hearts?
It's Rutskarn! Finally, I am a Star Wars!
So you've got the same sort of interface here. Most notably, the biggest improvement about this game is that it runs in entirely
Star Destroyer's
640 by
office
480
is
resolution.
designed like a branch library.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I can't unsee it.
And one of the big improvements here is that the battles are far more concise. Each battle is about 5 or 6 missions instead of like 12 to 20 as they were in X-Wing, and they follow like specific plot lines. And we can pick from a few starter ones here. And I think we should just like pick one of these and go through them. And I would probably go for Battle 2. I think that's the most memorable one of these early ones. And this is also kind of showing off how they deal with making the Empire the good guys, which is that the vast majority of the enemies in this game are not the rebels, really. You're dealing with this Battle 1 is against the rebels, but then Battle 2 is like there's these 2 warring systems in the Outer Rim, and you got to make peace. Battle 3 is you establishing a base in the frontier to bring order to a sector. Battle 4, you're going after pirates, and then later on we'll get into like fighting a bunch of basically Imperial traitors, but most of the time you're not actually doing anything with the Rebel Alliance, which is the way they kind of dodge the whole like, oh yeah, well, you know, the rebels are kind of fighting against you because you like took over the galaxy and established an autocracy and then started blowing up planets.
They had no interest in making Star Wars the line.
Yeah.
Received a distress signal from a ripperless
I also
convoy
brought
under
the
attack by
Essential
everything
Guide
in
to
this game
Vehicles
is
and
now
Vessels
voiced.
back.
Yeah.
We needed
that's
to
excellent.
look up any
Attackers are using a
ships,
modified
you know, get our
Corellian
education
Corvette
on the
and several
Imperial
rivals.
ones.
6 TIE fighters will deploy.
That's a
Okay,
good
can
point.
someone explain to me what Corellia is? It's a planet. Is it humanoid?
Yeah.
Are they humanoid?
Yeah, it's a major
Yes.
human planet.
3 TIE bombers.
So
It's like
explain this to me.
It's kind of like Albuquerque. It's huge, but you probably you've probably never been there, but you probably know somebody who's been there, and then like someone will, if you doubt shit talk Albuquerque, somebody will name someone who's from Albuquerque. Like you're like, okay, you could name one person. That's great. I'm glad you have that one guy.
Corellia
I like the Weird
is
Al
where
song.
Han Solo's from.
Is
Yeah.
it? Okay, I
So
did
you
not
would
know
have
that.
seen it in
So Han Solo is from Space Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Is it in Solo?
Yes.
Yeah, it's at the
That's,
the
that's the
beginning.
planet they start on.
Actually,
So this is the major.
I just want to say that I
improvement
actually
here.
wanted to say Cincinnati, but I guess Albuquerque works too.
So they give you
So
context.
this
is what
was-
I'm getting.
This was in X-Wing, but it was all this like extra stuff in the briefing. It wasn't voiced, and it was pretty sparse. This is all voiced, and you will have a much better idea of what's going on in the background if you just listen to this guy.
Your objective is to save page 1 of 2.
Survivors will report back to their leaders. Hopefully, the leaders will quickly realize the futility of further armed struggle. You will fly a TIE fighter designated Alpha 2. Your flight group will consist of 3 craft. Follow your flight leader during the mission. You will be accompanied.
I do think it's a little unbelievable, though, that like you would have a commander that gives you specific orders rather than just like receiving a form letter that says "Get in your damn ship and go," because that's kind of how they treat TIE fighter pilots.
The DMOCs operate a number of
Yeah, there'd be no way they'd spend this much time and resources to brief you like this.
It was
eventually
very
become the super elite fighter pilot.
It was really inauthentic how they asked us what our name was.
With a squadron of Z-95 headhunters.
And then there's something else interesting that this game does. We have the cloaked figure who works in the shadows and reports to the Emperor. And sometimes the orders this guy gives you are in a conflict with the orders that your normal briefing officer will give you.
That's how you that's how you mechanically make playing for like cartoon bad guys fun. You create layers of intrigue, like a good paranoia session. Where like you've got your main objective, but you've also got to like balance all these other like interests, because like basically you have to understand that you're not in a just or fair system, so you're at the mercy of being being punished for things that are not your fault or that you couldn't avoid.
I just
Deus
love the
Ex
idea
does
that
this really well too.
yes,
I should also add. But I think this is like way before Deus Ex.
by like 10 years.
Yeah.
So we've got to destroy all the DMOC craft, or 25% of the DMOC craft, protect the Star Destroyer, that's not going to get blown up, and then make sure that one of the modular conveyors survives.
Wait,
also
conveyor group ASBO?
Yeah.
ASBO? That's an antisocial behavior order?
Hasbro.
So
we have to destroy Hasbro before they conquer the Empire.
So right away, this looks like it's running at about double the resolution. Like, unless I'm completely misremembering our last session, this looks much cleaner.
Yeah, and you've got the 3D targeting computer now, and it tells you how much they have in terms of percentage shield and health.
Plus, the TIE Fighter cockpit is, let's be honest, immersive in a way that the X-Wing cockpit really wasn't.
But it is similar to the Millennium Falcon's gunner things.
Oh, we also have a much better map.
That too, yeah.
So it looks
Maybe
like
the Millennium Falcon was a bad
Adam
ship.
1 and Adam 2.
Y-wings.
Wasn't the Millennium Falcon an Imperial thing in
Rutskarn kills Adam, finally completing my Birdman-style journey into madness and decay.
It's a good question.
Also, another thing I'm immediately happy with is that it's not playing Star Wars music on a loop.
Yeah, the music in this game is also much better, and more. So I'm checking these guys to see who's getting attacked by who. I'm not sure.
I've noticed specifically, like, between these 2 years is a big year for technological leaps in gaming. I mean, not necessarily like between like these 2 years, but like between 2 years within a range of 3 or 4 years in the beginning of the 90s, you saw huge shifts in like what 2D, basically 2D games with like kind of this kind of graphics were capable of. I think it's much easier to tell a difference between a game that came out in 1995 and 1996 than it is to tell a difference between a game that came out in 2015 and today in 2019.
There are still like early Xbox One game or Xbox 360 games that look really good.
Yeah, I mean,
like by today's standard.
I mean, part of it is that the kind of during this period, almost every game development studio. Like, it may not be that they had the same artistic quality, but it was a much more level field in terms of, like, technological capabilities and how much, like, detail they could produce. worse in, today, there's a huge discrepancy between what an indie studio can, like a kind of a small-scale studio can create and what a studio of like 500 people can create. It's just like, on some level, even if you're using asset libraries, and even if, you've got artistic geniuses working tirelessly day and night, you can't produce the same kind of photorealism that you can produce with a huge staff.
Right. There was no such thing back then as a game development studio that was, 500 people making a game. That would be absurd to them. Like, it would be comical. Literally taking the credits from something like Red Dead Redemption 2 back in time and showing them to the developers that made this game, they would not believe how long they run. They literally would not believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
So the mission is actually complete, but we might get something if we stick around until this transport boards one of these ships, because what I discovered when I investigated these ships is that one of them was carrying Imperial arms, which obviously they're not supposed to be allowed to have.
The other thing is that you could, in various ways, you could more or less release a game that looked like this today and have a chance of being extremely successful. It's at least relative to the goals of your studio, which may not be very far from the goals of the studio that made this game in terms of overall sales. Your market was a lot smaller back then than it would be today.
Yeah.
I would actually love to see a game that sort of almost, maybe slightly more advanced in this aesthetic, but kind of embraces this aesthetic, for having just the most wacky ship designs and interactions and cockpits you could possibly have. Make it a big fun UX screw around that you can never do with a big game that's supposed to be like easy to have easy fights and the focus is on the combat.
Yeah.
Like in the when I was a teenager playing Galactic Civilizations 2, that game had the ability to create your own ship designs by like sort of like Lego bricking together various modules and also cosmetic parts. And it was robust enough that I was able to create an empire that was basically like a parody of the British Army from the Revolutionary War, as it is remembered by the Americans. And my fighter ships would literally be like lobster-back soldiers. And then my capital ship was like basically like a giant statue of the Queen. I want a game like that.
Alpha 2 target disabled.
I guess that's basically just the Spaceballs shooter we all want and deserve.
That would be like a good comedy space game. I haven't seen one of those in years and years. I think like Star
It's kind of
Tokyo
Star
was...
Control.
What was Star Control? What was Star Control?
Star Control was the
Oh yeah, Star Control. Well, I need to actually play Star Control.
Weird aliens shit. I'm getting hit. Okay, it'd be cool if we didn't die.
Radio messenger.
Are you talking about the recent ones or the originals? Because the original ones look older than this game.
The originals. I know, but like, there are two different Star Control games being made now. One of them came out, and it sucks, because it's Starduck, and Stardock sucks.
Our favorite.
Stardock
actually
also.
Do you know this August was the first August in 3 years that fucking asshole didn't bother me? It was a blessed,
Holy shit,
blessed
are you serious?
August. Yeah. It was like it's been a joke with like our friends, like the FPS crew and stuff. Like every August he comes for us for one reason or another. Anyways.
What a dipshit.
Yeah, it's so funny. So anyways, yeah, fuck Starduck.
Yes.
Starduck.
What is the ship? The ship looks weird.
Yeah,
This
what
is a
that
calamari
ship?
cruiser.
Ah.
I don't really
still
like
looks weird.
the models for those in this game.
Well, remember, Admiral Akbar also directed the B-Wing. I mean, designed the B-Wing, so he doesn't have a good track record.
So when it does come to end this mission, do we need to go back to the Star Destroyer, or do we just like
Yep,
hit escape
you gotta
at
fly
any
back
time?
to the Star Destroyer. I don't have a hyperdrive.
Okay.
I can mash the hyperdrive key, and it's like, you don't have one of those, dude.
I thought they don't equip TIE fighters with hyperdrives.
They don't. But there are other craft in this game that you will be able to fly that do have hyperdrives.
Alpha 2.
Can we fly a Star Destroyer?
Good.
No. There is a mod that allows you to do that in X-Wing Alliance, but it's really weird.
So here's a fun fact. Did you know that the Moncal cruisers were originally designed to be like cruise ships and pleasure craft? But then they were
I
outfitted
did know
to
that.
basically be like militaristic when they realized that their hull was like really good and really tough. And they're also really fast.
Alpha 2 using your
And then
target
Walt
for
Disney
attack.
scooped up their market and built a hotel cruise ship right outside of Batu. That's gonna be so weird.
Target destroyed.
It's so weird how they just went for it. Just calamaris. They're just calamaris.
Well, they're Mon calamari.
Yeah, but like even in this game, like in the last game, it just said calamari cruiser, and I mean, it's not a great, is it really? I mean, it's a pretty long-standing tradition of science fiction writers borrowing words from Earth, but from context that they think that their readership will be unfamiliar with, to describe alien races and like classes and stuff. And it's just funny that he picked calamari because that's something that like anyone who's been to an Italian restaurant has heard of.
Yeah.
A lot of the Star Wars creature designs are the fusion of several different animals together. And I guess with Mon Calamari, they didn't fuse much together. They're just like, nope, this one's just the fish.
I like fishmen. I enjoy fishmen in all of their forms and all of their places. I do. Fishmen, I think, are a blessing.
What about Aquaman?
I don't care. I don't give a shit about Aquaman. He's not a fish man.
What?
He's a man
Yes, he
who
is.
hangs out with fish. Aquaman? He's just
Yeah,
a guy who
he's-
hangs out with fish.
He's
he
not
doesn't
just
have.
a guy.
Where are his glossy eyes the size of dinner plates? Where are his rubbery lips that hang like a theater curtain from his jowly, pale, dead man's skin underbelly? Where are the little fins that sprout out like dragon wings from where his ears should be?
You're making a lot of racist statements about fishmen. I'm
I
just saying.
admire fishmen.
Rutskarn.
You
Shape
say
of
that, but
water
it's all
ruins
derogatory.
Everything for all other fishmen. Stupid
I would like
Hollywoodization of
clarification.
fishmen.
When you said you enjoy fishmen, did you mean as a culinary dish?
How dare you, sir?
So do we have to actually fly into like a docking bay, or can we just like?
Oh no,
Fly.
you see I can just hit the spacebar because I'm close to it.
Josh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
I see where the difficulty is coming here. When I said that fishmen are a snack, what I meant was
Capture
not that.
complete.
I don't know if like we
Has been seized and will be
got it.
I'm
all?
pretty sure the mission's done.
Yeah, I'm wondering if
stand up patrol until Asbo is safely away.
you're saying we don't really have to do this though. This is like bonus points. For the purposes of this recording, I think we'll fly back and get on with the campaign.
You know what this is missing though? If of the two games,
You have helped
having
prevent the
more annoying
destruction of the
audio,
Riverless
you would
Continent.
think sitting inside a TIE
In doing
fighter
so, a
would be the
strong
one that would have the more
signal
obnoxious
sends the
audio
team up
the
Yeah.
entire time.
that the Empire will not tolerate any further aggressive actions from them.
You have uncovered some very alarming evidence. There is no legitimate way the Rippobliss could have acquired Imperial armaments. Remain
I like this guy's
We will speak
outfit.
again.
It's kind of like
Oh yeah.
You know, you didn't really get costumes like that in Star Wars back in the 80s too much. This is kind of like what happened when Star Wars defaulted to like the people making comics and painting the covers of paperback novels instead of George Lucas and Lucasfilm. I mean, obviously not LucasArts, but Lucas like film.
You know what's
kind of like
interesting?
a gradual tectonic shift of aesthetic. What's interesting?
I'd be curious to know who actually had to run their art concepts and concept art through more layers of bullshit. Were it people at LucasArts who at the time were working with George Lucas, or are it people now at EA and Respawn that have to send their crap to the LucasArts organization, the film organization?
Oh, that's a good question.
As a wing of Disney. Because, like, on one hand, you get, like, the auteur of George Lucas himself sitting there going, like, no, they wouldn't dress like that. But then on the other hand, you have, like, you know, somebody at Respawn spending 3 weeks doing a mock-up of a costume, and then they hand you back a list of, like, things that don't correspond to their upcoming film.
The Empire's goal.
You know,
So I actually have input on this. Because
Go ahead.
yeah, so when I was making my Star Wars video, I watched the costume documentary for Episode 1, and it actually was one of the like cutest things in my opinion because it actually had George Lucas completely out of his element. But I think it was like good because he then deferred to the expertise of the costume designers. So like I mean, the documentary can only show so much, but what they did show was like him just like asking a ton of questions and clearly in learning mode as like these people were talking about different fabric styles and creating their own like embroidery and stuff. Like it was super interesting because it was like the one time when like George Lucas wasn't acting like a megalomaniac because costuming wasn't a thing in the original trilogy. Like, you know, like it just, they spent as little money and time as possible on him. So when it came to the new stuff, it was like, that was one of those things.
Yeah, I watched a lot of documentary featurettes back in the day, and I watched a lot of footage of him looking at maquettes and like busts. And I would say just from watching that part of the process and from my own experiences with Bureaucracy, it's probably a lot easier if you're working with Lucas, because after a few go-arounds, you start to get a sense of what he'd like, I think. That's my impression. Like, you start to get a sense of, like, what he is going for, and you can kind of work with him. Whereas if you're working with the Bureaucracy, you have no idea. They can be you could have one design that you got approved 6 months ago, and then suddenly, like, there's a 5-alarm emergency because someone realized that it is totally unsuitable and has jumped down, like, 6 different people's throats in a building you will never visit. And they have rained shit down, and it has finally reached your desk. Like, that, I think, is probably the current experience of designing stuff for Star Wars.
So, this is another bit where TIE Fighter improves upon X-Wing, where in X-Wing you would have just set warheads for each ship. You can now choose your warhead loadout on any ship that has warheads. And they like to use torpedoes a lot in this game, but torpedoes fucking suck. Best weapon in the game is heavy rockets for killing capital ships, so we're going to use those.
This is cute.
So we're in a TIE bomber now?
Yeah, so the guys that we protected last time are now launching a reprisal raid on a DMOC scientific station here. So our goal now is to knock out their attack force, to let them know, like, we're not on one person's side or the other, we just want you to stop fighting. Actually, what kind of containers are there around the... There's 4 lab modules and the station used.
Attention, rebellious forces. Cease your attack at
Whoa.
once. Imperial, this is no science station. It's a weapons lab.
So here's an interesting, I guess, diversion from Oh wow. Yeah, you just took that thing out.
Yeah. So what are our exact goals here? 25% of all Ripless craft was destroyed.
Oh, I just saw all those green TIE Fighter blasts pass us by, and I realized it was kind of interesting that, like, in a film, you can cut or pan such that any shooting ship is in the frame, but in a Descent-style game, you can't do that. So you really try to keep all these blasts really quiet, because otherwise it would just be a din of pew 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 pew. And it's interesting that it's interesting how different this sounds, not just in the sense that it's like coming out of a synthesizer and it's, you know, a video game, but that, like, there we cut close, and when you're close you can hear it when Josh did his little camera thing. But otherwise we're not hearing any of these laser blasts, and it's just weird to see a Star Wars scene full of green lasers and not hear anything.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, as we've moved on through the years, the battle scenes have just had more shit in them over time. Like,
Cut to that
this would
picture
be
from the Rise of Skywalker trailer.
Yeah, this battle would not be appropriate for a fan film these days. It'd be like, what? No, that's like a you need. Is this like a proof of concept? You need 100 more ships, and they all need to be piloted by members of the Darrow family from the official Rutskarn Rise of a Hero comic book series.
I mean, in fairness, you do have, like, eventually you get things like Descent Free Space that did, I think, start capturing at least the original Star Wars scale. But, yeah, I don't know.
Free Space was a good game. I think it's one that probably nobody remembers. I mean, obviously people who played it remember it, but, like, it's not a game that has a lot of currency in modern game discussions, not least because this sort of game doesn't really exist anymore. There's just Star Citizen, which doesn't really exist.
There's Elite, but Elite's not really what this is going. This is hardcore dogfighting. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
like, there's...
Elite Dangerous went the other way. Like, they're like, okay, well, what if we took this, but we made it deliberately 100 times more boring? And everyone's like, yeah, that's perfect.
You kids love Freelancer. We captured all the boring parts and turned it into a game.
It's like Freelancer, but it's like actually being a freelancer.
Beta 2, assist transport Epsilon. They are taking fire. Beta 2.
I actually have Elite Dangerous in VR, and it took me a long time to get it working because they were fixing the servers that week. And I played it for like a minute. I played it for like, I did the tutorial, and then I played the overworld for like a minute, and the now what feeling actually hit me pretty hard, like harder than I was expecting.
Why are we trying to hang out with that guy? What's going on?
I think the thing that kills me about Elite is that...
What is it? Oh, shit!
I'm confused.
So that guy was reloading our warheads.
Oh no!
And then an enemy shuttle came by and blew us up. But I think because we completed all the primary goals, we still get to go on.
Oh, they don't have Bacta? They just have hover medicine?
Oh, hey, we did enough to get in.
No, that was
or to get.
That was them giving us a lethal injection because we fucked up too bad.
So now we got a wacky force tattoo now, which we can see on the screen now. You are the first initiate of the secret order of the Emperor.
See, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is like it's so much more than what was in X-Wing. Where X-Wing was kind of like, well, the story's just kind of like there. It's you can read it if you want, or if not, it's just some cool encounters.
It is very 90s video game that the secret symbol of the secret order of the Empire is 3 like shock pink triangles. Like kind of in your forearm. Like, did they take that from a Phantasmagoria 2 puzzle?
I like the idea that Sheev
gets
is
more
like
elaborate.
Sheev's like elbowing his secret messenger in the gut, being like whispering to him like, "Welcome to a secret club called Everybody."
Their own government.
He just doesn't.
Everyone in the Empire discovers they
Everybody
have pink tattoos.
They all think they're his special friend.
And he gives all of them, like, increasingly embarrassing tattoos until, like, literally everyone has just, like, a pink unicorn on their butt.
System patrol craft glass.
Why do you think everyone wears robes? Hiding up all their embarrassing tattoos.
The glass will then be
that actually, that's
very upset if you get the tattoo he gave you removed.
The Emperor's like, shall we next capture the sauna planet of Epsilon 4? And everyone's like, no, no need.
They are principally scientists who are wary of the way their knowledge has been put to use.
So, we're 3 missions into, I think, a 6-mission thing.
The system patrol craft isn't
Go ahead.
drive capable,
well,
so it will have to dock.
In what universe? Yeah, well, exactly. Like, I'm willing to acknowledge that the Empire would probably be dealing with inter-system conflict as part of their empire, but helping refugees is kind of like not in line with the general fascist thing they're going for.
I believe these are top-level scientists.
4 Y-wings and 4 Lambda-class shuttles.
This is brain. Like, we are stocking our brain cabinet.
Shuttles will then try to board and capture it.
But you'd think they'd make that more explicit,
something as well, so stay alert.
Because framing it as there's some just refugees
scientists.
is not.
From the Seepan Civil War.
So, like, they're scientists, so there's probably some ulterior motive, like, oh, we can see what they're working on and, get them to work for us. Sometimes there won't be any secret objectives guy here, and that just means there's usually not any secondary objectives for the mission. There might still be hidden objectives, but...
It would be pretty fun to play a game where you play the bad guy, where you have kind of like the sub-game, which is spot the ulterior motive for seemingly mundane but innocuous government tasks.
What's really interesting to me about the way they have all these multiple mission objectives and hidden mission objectives and secondary optional mission objectives is we now have become, at least in the mainstream games industry, obsessed with open world games, and it's very open about its spaces, but very, very limited in terms of its approach to mechanic design and win states. And I find that flip really interesting, where now we have very open spaces and very, very limited gameplay possibility spaces, whereas here the possibility space is really big, even as it's marching you through a linear story-driven campaign. I don't know, I'm crazy.
No, I think you're, like, I think sometimes there's just that satisfaction to, like, going through a game and just, like, seeing the list of missions. So you're like, okay, this is this game. And I know I have to do these things, and I know, like, where this game's gonna take me.
Well, I mean, more like, there's this game, I mean, even 10 years later, you had stuff like GoldenEye and Deus Ex, which did similar things in terms of difficulty settings, modifying what it meant to win. And we don't really see that so much anymore. Now, difficulty settings largely control either damage taken, parry times, how many enemies, stuff like that. But we don't usually have systems that allow for layered objectives. And that's interesting to me.
I see what you mean. And even in just like your mode of engagement, even if we look at the Star Wars game we did on stream, what was it called again? The name keeps slipping out of my brain.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Fallen Order? Yeah. Nobody can remember what that game is called. Okay, even Fallen Order, it's each instant, it's modeled on like the Dark Souls approach for those kind of instant combats, but it felt a little like, actually, in Dark Souls and in Bloodborne, there's quite a lot you can do to change up how you progress through an area. Like if you talk to someone, especially somebody who does speedrunning, they'll be like, oh yeah, you need to engage those guys, you don't need to engage those guys, there's a secret way through here. There's like a tunnel there, you can unlock an alternate route here. I didn't see too much of that going on in Fallen Order. Now it was like kind of a blind play a little bit. Like we had the one issue where like Glitch like had to go all the way back around to something because he didn't find a way through to it, but that's about it.
Are those Imperial shuttles?
Turns out there's lots of people use them in this universe.
Alex, can you double? Is that true? Can you fact check that?
What's the ship called?
The shuttle.
Lambda class shuttle.
Is it a Is it a Lambda class shuttle or is it just like?
Oh, there it is.
No,
yeah,
no. Lambda is it's Oh, really?
Yeah, it is a Lambda class
here,
shuttle.
Can I say that the
Cargo
combat map there
Oh, go ahead. I'm
was
still
higher
reading.
the combat map there was higher quality than you would expect. In showing like what the depth of each command is. Usually 3D maps in this era of games are not that good. Like Daggerfall's map is like it tries to give you a sense of like its 3D layouts for its dungeons, and it's just dreadful. It's absolutely useless, in fact. And it helps that like there's a very limited amount of data that needs to be conveyed, but still, it was it actually looked quite helpful.
Yeah, like there's some bits about this game are oddly modern in how intuitive they are.
Alex, go. I want to know about the ship.
So, the Lambda shuttles are like what I would say would be pretty high-level Imperial cargo ships. They could carry up to 20 passengers and 80 tons of cargo, and they were unique in that they had hyperdrives, which not many Imperial shuttles did, which is why like they were the craft of choice for the Emperor. Darth Vader had one. The Alliance steals one at some point, which is how like Han and Leia have access to one later. In Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
But they don't say whether like people outside the Empire use them.
No, like this was like something
it's more...
specifically used for like the like Imperial high top level guys.
It's definitely more of a conceit of the setting in this particular one.
Wait, is there a difference between the Lambda and the Sigma? Is the Sigma newer?
No, these are flight group
Sigma
names.
new.
Oh. Oh, so it was a Lambda. It was a Lambda group that had a Lambda ship in. Okay, that's confusing.
Yeah. For whatever reason, they decided to name that particular group Lambda Group.
This sounds like some sort of sororities in space simulator.
It's the tattoo you're gonna get from Palpatine. It's just it's like Sigma Phi Sigma or some crap like that.
It's a brand. Oh my god, it is a brand!
Transmission received. Gamma 2 using your target for attack.
We're joining the Emperor's Frat.
Dying in that ship was just the hazing.
All pledges need to get ejected into the cold grip of space, then brought back to life with an injection of pure monster energy drink.
Excellent work, Gamma 2. Primary mission objectives complete. Good work, Gamma 2. Refugees are very grateful. Prepare to return to the hangar. Target destroyed. Refugees are safely aboard the Protector. System patrol.
See, but like the framing of it, it still bugs me. Like, refugees are grateful. That shouldn't be the Empire's move. It should be like, we've secured the scientists. Good work. Like, it should be something like that.
Yeah, it does a very...
I mean, granted, it was the 90s, and the thoughts of fascism were very far from everyone's mind. Like, it was all just sort of like proto-Nazi jokes. It's just, now in 2019, it's not as funny.
I mean, like, you could say on the same level that, like, they were trying to approach this as just like an authoritarian government that is bad, but not everything they do is bad. It's just that they do things that are very bad.
Target destroyed.
And in some ways, committing to depicting only the atrocities is taking a more aggressive stance against, an evil empire than creating a game which is just kind of like, You run a bunch of errands, do some things that are kind of okay. Not everyone's an asshole. But sometimes you get taken out into a back room and branded with 3 pink triangles because you murdered somebody.
I mean, some of this is also just my particular frustration at what Disney has done to the brand, where, it's now a marketing choice. Are you light side or dark side? Show your Star Wars side at Disney Galaxy's Edge. That kind of crap.
What chicken meat are you?
Target destroyed.
Like, that's the kind of stuff.
Our
that
ship
bugs me.
has been sufficiently beat up. We're gonna go land now.
Product and marketing director seasoned on the light side versus dark side dichotomy. Like, within my lifetime, probably. I want to say, around the Phantom Menace coming out, and it just has been awful.
Well, I mean, it's always been marketed because, it's Star Wars, right? We've had action figures of Darth Vader since Star Wars came out. But, the idea that, you could playfully be like, oh, I would hang out with Darth Vader and we'd be friendos. And that's a fun thing that the brand itself engages you on. It has not been the most comfortable thing to see emerge.
Discovered the time and place for a high-level meeting between the Democ and Rippoblus leaders.
He mispronounced Intel?
Transport Omega, 2 ships, will lead a special operation.
He said Intel.
Discovered the time and place for a
Yeah, he
high-level
did.
meeting between the
That's
Democ
the
and
90s
Rippoblus
voice
leaders.
acting thing. You guys weren't around when we did Daggerfall, were you?
Transport Omega, 2 ships. will lead
I
a
wasn't
special
around
What,
operations
like bad
to the
British
leaders
voices,
of
or
the
just
South.
putting
No,
the
no,
wrong
like,
emphasis on the wrong syllable?
I feel like I am a connoisseur of this, of how to read something off like a voice actor in a 90s video game.
You will team
It's a
with
very
Transport
specific
Omega 1,
diction. Like here,
and Assault
I'll
Gunboat
give you an example in
Tau
just a
will
sec.
team with Transport Omega 2.
He's loading up text now,
Intel
isn't he?
has discovered the time and place.
I'm loading up wiki quote.
Capture the leadership of both sides in the Seepan.
I'm just going to read the quote of the day.
They will be vulnerable to capture.
I remember my youth and the feeling that will never come back anymore. The feeling that I could last forever, outlast the sea, the earth, and all men.
You will fly the assault gunboat.
What's that quote from?
Nu 2 of a
Apparently it is from Joseph Conrad.
For
Oh,
this mission, your craft
sorry.
has been loaded with the standard warhead armament of 16 concussion missiles.
So, Heart of Darkness?
You will be teamed with Transport
I think it's just something he said.
Assault Gunboat Group Tau is teamed with
He could
Transport
outlast
Omega
the
2.
sea?
Get in
I
fast
don't
and disable the
fucking
leader's
know.
shuttles. Once
Okay, apparently it's from
disabled, they will be
Youth,
boarded
a
by
narrative.
stormtroopers and the leaders captured.
Gotcha.
You will protect the
I don't know what that
operation
is,
by
but
destroying
okay.
any craft which try to interfere. Once
Here's a
you
quote
have
from
detected
Toad Patrol, a
you will
Canadian
fly
animated
hyperspace
TV
out to a
series
rendezvous
about
with
8
the
young toadlet
Democ
siblings and their
flagship,
struggle for
a
survival in the Great
Nebulon
Forest.
B2
Alex, I'm sure you're an expert on this
will be
franchise.
nearby.
Do you have any thoughts
No.
before I
Will
continue?
deploy a full
I don't
squadron
know
of
what this is.
headhunters. The Rippoblus will also have a frigate present.
Alright, so the key to 90s voice acting is to put emphasis on weird syllables, to read it at kind of like a sing-song way, where you put stress on each word, kind of it, also at random, to mispronounce every other word, to pronounce any proper noun differently than everyone else in the game pronounces that proper noun.
Or stolen Imperial equipment. The Emperor is suspicious of how the
Like-
Democ and Rippoblus are
Like,
arming themselves.
if you're like the Dimmock and the Republius,
Explain the quantity of weapons
it's like if this game is longer, I'm sure we're gonna hear somebody say the Republius or the Republius, the Rippoblus.
Rippoblus. So this is interesting. We are now flying an assault gunboat, which was the one Imperial craft. Well, TIE Advanced was briefly in a few missions, but was the primary Imperial craft in X-Wing that had shields, and they were just a bitch to kill in X-Wing. It was horrible. And now we're flying them. These things have shields, have hyperdrives. So you do get occasionally to hop in a ship with shields early on.
Okay, so that is the guy that does so the guy that was just talking to us is the narrator for Rogue Squadron. That bothered me because I swore I'd heard that voice before, and it's the guy that's like, join Wigs and Wigs and Bench. Biggs and Wedge.
What?
Join Biggs and
Wings
Wedge
and
and
Bench.
whatever. It's a parallel universe. But no, I remember him telling me all the story backgrounds, so he's apparently been doing this in Star Wars games for a very long time.
We can shoot him to death, you guys. We gotta disable him.
Omega 1, preparing to board shuttle Kanan.
Your guns seem a lot louder now.
Well, those are ion cannons.
Omega 2.
You
Do
think
they
they have
have
to
names?
scrap a whole, like, gun project? Yeah, ion cannons are, like, guns that do... Wait, what do you mean do they have names?
Well, I just always refer to every sort of non-lightsaber weapon in Star Wars as a blaster.
Right, well, so
I didn't
ion
know there
cannons
were
have, like,
classes.
a specific function.
I guess there are
Like,
photon
What
torpedoes.
are these guys telling?
Yeah, like ion... Wait, are there photon torpedoes in this game?
They're
Proton
whatever the
torpedoes.
Proton, not photon, whatever. It's all the
Proton, yeah. Very
sci-fi
important.
mumbo jumbo.
But yeah, I think ion cannons disable electronics and, like, shields, right, Josh?
Yeah, that's how it works. Or variously penetrate shields. They do different things depending upon which particular media they're in.
Do you think, like, the Empire and the military would have to scrap a good weapons project if they somehow produced a novel and effective kind of blaster or gun weapon, but the noise it made was just too annoying?
No, because you have TIE fighters.
I know, but, like, what if it was worse than that? What if it sounded like cats having sex every time you fired the weapon? Like, at some point, would that compromise the effectiveness of the pilot?
So basically what you're asking is, like, what if there was a gun that also sounded the brown note, and we had pilots dogfighting with this weapon?
You do not want to shit yourself in a pressurized cockpit, my friend.
Well, the best part is that the TIE fighter, like we learned last week, does not have life support systems, so they're in a self-contained atmo.
I was just gonna say, the Empire... So, like, if you want to get really deep in the Star Wars lore, you'll find that, like, for a good portion of the Star Wars timeline, the Empire is running in a major deficit, which means they had, like, no financial stability for anything. Like, and there's, like, the semi-famous joke about, like, Darth Vader, even, like, his surgeries were on a budget. So that's why he breathes weird, is because they skimped out on his surgery and they couldn't afford to give him good respirator. So it's like, that just tells you right there.
I mean, okay, so the math fundamentally makes no sense that the Empire is running a deficit. Like, I don't get how that works. Because that's basically saying that, like... I'm obviously not arguing with you. Like, but, like, the Empire is just the GDP, with the G being galactic. It's just like, how does the Empire fail to break even?
I think this
they
is
own
sort of
all
like
the means of production.
You're running into the Harry Potter problem, but where Star Wars' boundaries are, right? Like, the problem with Harry Potter is as soon as you leave Hogwarts and start talking about the real world or just the adult world, none of it makes sense. It immediately falls apart. And I feel like that's the same thing with Star Wars, where, like, the most they really get into the actual geopolitics of Star Wars, aside from individual systems, is basically, like, there's the, generally speaking, there's the Empire or the Republic, and then there's the outer rim, like the outer stuff at the edge of the galaxy, and then that's it. We don't really get any more detail than that. And I know that there have been attempts to kind of do that, but none of them really have become sort of the grand unifying Star Wars theory, and none of them really make sense. So as soon as you start asking, like, how did the Empire make money? Who did the Empire trade with? It falls apart. Like, the idea of the Empire...
It's almost like it's not a fully realized world or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like to know also, like, how they would justify the idea that the rebellion would have better ships.
We never figure out who backs the rebellion. That's also an interesting thing that we just sort of conveniently
I'm sure it's
leave
in
out.
some book somewhere, right?
I mean, The Last Jedi kind of goes there, but no one likes that movie, so this doesn't count.
Well, but they don't talk about who funds them, though, do they? They don't, like, who actually funds...
No, but I think there is this implication that, like, the rebellion are... Well, we know the rebellion steal a lot. We don't know... They steal a lot from the Empire, but they probably also steal from other people, too.
They run phone scams.
Oh my god.
Like, the system as it exists benefits from perpetual war, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be at war. See also, you know, the American military-industrial complex. I mean, not that we're not at war, but we spend a lot more money than...
I want to see the Star Wars movie on Disney Plus, which demonstrates that all along the rebellion got enough money to finance its terrorism through selling drugs.
Well, but I was thinking more like there had to be some, like, founding father Ben Franklin assholes that really wanted to become, like, the new original heads of the Republic as soon as they reclaimed the Republic from the Empire.
So the backstory is generally like it was a series of disaffected senators who started up the rebellion, like Bail Organa, who's in Episode 3, Mon Mothma.
Yeah.
And they, you know, Bail Organa, I guess, kind of was the head of state of Alderaan?
Yes.
Was.
Well, yeah,
Too soon.
then Alderaan got blown up.
But, like, so I guess that would be your Ben Franklin kind of character. Your founding fathers were Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. Jimmy Smits was the father figure of an alternate history version of the Star Wars universe.
Good work. You have uncovered a shipment of Imperial supplies. This material was either stolen or sold to these smugglers.
Oh, Josh, stop doing that. That's like bunny hopping for this game. Stop it. Stop it.
What are you talking
Seriously.
about? This is how this goes. Like, you need
It's not so
to
bad
do
when you're-
this to stay alive.
It's not so bad when you're shooting, but when you're just wobbling...
There's people shooting at me, Chris. What do you want?
Is that pilot having a seizure? No, he's just trying to survive. It's bizarre because, like, again, it's weird how this game doesn't borrow as much from dogfighting as you'd think.
Go! Go! Okay. Sometimes it takes a little while to line up.
Well, they gotta calculate the jump to light speed. But you will note that they missed the blue tunnel because that was not a popular thing to include until the new series.
As it turns out, the individuals we captured are not the Demok and Rippobliss leaders.
So we went to capture the leaders of the Demok and Rippobliss in this high-level meeting, and it turns out they both sent children as hostages, so we just captured all the children of the leaders.
Furthermore, they intended to join
Whoopsie
forces
daisy.
against us. We had hoped to persuade them to negotiate a peace settlement.
When are they going to finally make a game where you play a government employee and the first mission you do, like the easiest tutorial mission, like creates a problem you need to solve in the next mission, which just like cascades and spirals throughout the entire game until you're dealing with a catastrophe that is 100% your fault.
You have uncovered further evidence that someone within the Imperial Navy is selling arms to the Demok and Rippobliss. We must discover who this traitor is.
Rippobliss.
Class Star Destroyer Protector is to
So we've been going for about, I think, 50 minutes here.
You want to do one more?
Close out. I think this is the last mission in this campaign. There was something else I wanted to show too.
TIE Fighter Group Alpha, consisting of 3 crafts...
And this mission
will be
takes a
deployed to
while,
patrol
as
the
I
area
recall.
during the transfer operation.
So do we
But
want
it's
to
a
finish out this
TIE
campaign, or...
The Demox and the Ripper
Okay,
are hoping
do we?
to
Is the
capture
other
Starboard
mission also in a TIE advance?
joint attack.
No?
TIE bomber
No.
group Beta
So,
and TIE interceptor group
what I wanted to
Gamma
point out
are
here
on
was,
standby in case
so
of
we've been
trouble.
flying, like, your pretty basic craft. You gotta be really careful flying, like, a ship with no shields in this game. You got, like, maybe 4 or 5 hits and you're screwed. That doesn't stay the case throughout the entire game, however. So... We've jumped ahead to battle, what is it, 9? 11.
A supply convoy
And
has been
this is
detected
much
in the area
later.
where
Some
the
guy
suspected
named
Beta
Zarin
Zarn is lurking.
defected, like basically formed his own like offshoot of the Empire and is now kicking the Empire's ass. And we're gonna go to this convoy here where he's getting resupplied.
Any cargo operations and hold the attention of enemy fighters. Missile boat move
And
one
we're gonna be
will
flying
join
a
assault
ship
gunboat
called
group
the
now as
Missile
quickly
Boat.
as possible.
This is a ship that has
Bombs. Exciting and
one
new.
gun.
Convoy and destroy the dreadnought.
Come
It has one
aboard.
gun.
We're exploding you.
If
Is
the
So
it
it's
like
not,
the gun
you know-
from the opening of Last Jedi?
supplies, they should
No,
be
it's just a normal gun. But it also
If
carries
Zarin's forces show,
40
Imperial
missiles,
class Star Destroyer Courageous
and then an
will join the
additional
battle to defeat
40
them
missiles
and
or
oversee
20
capture.
torpedoes or 15 heavy rockets.
All
You can just
Starfighter
kind of pick.
pilots will do their utmost to ensure the successful completion of this mission.
So this thing can just like
A
kill
supply
fleets
convoy
of
has been
starships.
You are to intercept a convoy.
Alright, forget it. Let's just jump in here. Oh, also we have beam weapons now, like a tractor beam, which we can use. Also, this thing has a booster that uses the laser power to
Why does it
double
look like a
the
Harrier?
engine speed.
It just looks like this. I will say this is the lamest designed ship I've ever seen, Josh.
I don't think this ship is even in the book.
No,
Oh my
it isn't. The
God.
TIE Defender is.
It's that bad.
This is awful, Josh. You wanted to show us this?
So we've got to kill the T-Wings, capture the freighters, destroy the dreadnought, and inspect the freighters. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on you. Yeah.
So, other than maybe like Eve, is there a game that really makes turning carry with it momentum based on the weight of your ship?
Recording started.
Because I'm just looking at the speed with which
Oops.
you're rotating, and it seems about as fast as a TIE fighter, and it's oops, that sounded like a bad oops.
Yeah, we'll deal with that later. I don't know if there's like you have certain things that are more or less maneuverable than
I would hate to be the
I
person
don't
who has
know.
to figure
I
out,
wouldn't
like...
say which one
I'd
is
hate-
which.
I'd hate to be the person who has to decide to what extent they're going to bother finding a reason for some ships to be more maneuverable than others.
Well, but like, wouldn't a lot of it just be mass?
In space? I mean, I know, right? But, like... It's kind of like you have to navigate this uncomfortable relationship with physics.
I'm sorry. Does it say the dreadnought is carrying Urab? What does that mean?
Barbary?
The Barbary Coast.
Intelligence was right. One of Zarin's frigates has arrived.
So, Alex, did you play this game?
No. Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be Barbary. Like, yeah, no, that probably is, yeah, Barbary Coast.
Yeah.
Why Barbary Coast?
It wasn't till I got to Rogue Squadron that I got back into the
Parts
whole
of the
flight life.
Barbary Coast was a 1986 video game.
So is that Rogue Squadron on the what
N64.
console? Okay. So you're one generation ahead of me. I didn't start with the Star Wars shooters until Rogue Squadron. Or Rogue Leader, or whatever, the GameCube one.
Yeah, that's the second one. The second Rogue Squadron.
Oops.
Barbary was also a science fiction novel in 1986.
I accidentally blew up the shuttle I was supposed to capture.
Whoops.
I want to feel like the Empire is sympathetic to this kind of thing. It's like, it's okay, we all get carried away. We just, at the end of the day, if somebody died, that's a good day for us.
Assault gunboat new here. Will disable freighters and shuttle Z Sigma 1.
So I do kind of have to ask, if you're playing as the rebels, there's sort of a natural climax in terms of like either going with the trench run or whatever bits of the second Death Star blowing up you want to take. What do you have here? Like, what is the big victorious? Because there's not really, it's not even like in the movie where the Empire wins. There's a
we
big
take
space
down
battle.
Zarin. Why can't I hit this guy?
So the victory against the Empire is basically, or the victory for the Empire is basically a victory against a fake version of the Empire.
Yeah, basically. Oh, that didn't work. You guys are getting annoying.
Is any of this still canon?
Not in the new continuity, no.
Yes. There's 4 parts that are canon. On the TIE Fighter. It's the parts that go like pew pew pew, and then there's another part that goes like pow pow. That stuff's all canon.
I have to say
That just
this
killed the
does look
conversation.
No, I'm looking at Josh blowing stuff up. It seems very easy now.
Oh yeah, like this is ridiculously more powerful than like the TIE bomber I was in 30 minutes ago. It contains traitors.
They're dead now.
TIE bomber from
Not really.
entering battle to attack frigate Strident with rockets.
Okay, let's get away from this ship.
God.
Oh,
So here's a question. Just the thing I would point out is, or not thing I would point out. Thing I have a question about. In Star Wars, do blasters, ion cannons, and other weapons, do they have a range? Or is that like, are these
Yes.
photon blasts? Okay, so they're not going to eventually just randomly hit
Yeah.
somebody. Because I'm looking at all these blasts flying off into space, and I'm very concerned about some poor person.
Yeah, they don't
Centuries
just go
from
on
now.
forever.
One, don't let those TIE advanced fighters interfere with our captures.
A standard like blaster in Star Wars, like a blaster pistol, it doesn't shoot much further than a football field.
Is that still canon?
Yeah.
Incoming missile.
I mean,
I don't know how you know that.
probably, right?
I don't know if that's something they've made an official call on, though.
Well, it's the canon itself is weird, right? Because like they keep cherry picking stuff to bring back, and they don't always bring it back in the same way. Like they're using the extended universe
It's
the
like
way Marvel
it's
uses
like the
their
Pet
comics.
Cemetery of canon.
Well, yes, kind of, but also like how IG-88 isn't really canon, but they brought IG-11 into the Mandalorian or whatever.
Very impressive.
IG-88 is canon.
Well, okay, IG-88 existing is canon, but all of his extended universe adventures aren't. Like, IG-88 now is just a robot that shows up on a ship once, and that's it. That's IG-88 now.
Well, I mean, it's probably good because in the old canon, one of the 4 IG-88s managed to get himself turned into the computer core of the Death Star. And
Why
was
do you
gonna,
know
like, take
and
control
torture
of
me
it.
with all the nerd stuff you know, Josh? That sounds so
That sounds
bad.
like a big whoops to me.
Yeah.
My favorite Star Wars whoops is, like, so they had that robot that's torturing other robots in Return of the Jedi, and I guess they decided that couldn't just be like, oh, they programmed a robot to torture other robots. They have, like, a canon where that was supposed to be a protocol droid, but there was a weird, creepy bug where all of them just became robo-sadists, and they really love hurting other robots, like other droids.
Yeah, I have a vague memory of this.
I just want to point out that this is the smartest Let's Play of a Star Wars game from 20 years ago you'll ever watch, because we quoted Joseph Conrad, and that makes us extraordinarily smart.
Oh my god.
I think that might be the most stupid context anyone has quoted Joseph Conrad outside of someone attempting to institute the philosophies and policies of Joseph Conrad.
Excellent, Jody. Capture operation complete. Good work, One. Sarin will grow increasingly desperate now. Report for debriefing as soon as you get back.
Just shoot it on missile.
So, I guess what I'm taking from this is this does look eminently more playable. The music is less annoying, the UI is more friendly, the action seems a little bit more readable and a little bit more fun. We're not dying for no reason anymore. It looks like X-Wing, but not bad. All the complaints we had last week, I think, are largely gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's they took what was good from X-Wing and iterated on it to make it even better while cutting out a lot of the frustrating things from that game.
Like, my only complaints are things that are coming at it from a position of 2019, where, like, I wish there was a little bit more, not more story, but, like, more of a direction to the story, other than just, like, a lot of the context seems mission excuses.
It does come out a bit more if you're, like, playing in a sequence.
Oh, sure, I'm sure it's not as disjoint. It's not the quality of the story that I think is bugging me. It's more, I love that you did everything except the ship you blew up. Okay, I love that image of the TIE fighters flying out from under the Star Destroyer. That's a really cool image, and that is pretty great.
Our operation was a success.
Alright, so that was TIE Fighter.
Many enemy craft were destroyed, and valuable military supplies were
I'm not sure what we're doing next. In fact, I think
vital resources.
I might do a patron week with Star Wars games and just see what the patrons vote for to do Star Wars games.
Oh, please let it be
Or
Connect
maybe
Star
not.
Wars. Oh, please let it be
I was
Connect
just
Star
thinking
Wars.
that
Star Wars.
too. I literally
No.
was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, I need to see
How hard
Josh dance.
could it possibly be to
We'd
find
have to
a way to
order
do
it.
Connect Star Wars?
The problem is getting it off
Special
eBay and
order.
getting it delivered to Josh's house on time.
Oh, just go to
For next
GameStop.
year.
I'm sure they've got a dozen copies.
The problem is finding a
in the
Kinect,
back.
really.
Just check in the back.
Oh, they got those too.
Hey, you got any bootleg connects?
I'm looking forward more than anything to the audio quality drop of Josh with a headset on, dancing to I'm Solo.
There's like a
While also
40%
trying to comment on
chance. I think the worse the audio is for that, the better off we'll all be.
We are not going to do Connect Star Wars. I don't even have an Xbox One.
But I mean, if the patrons
that
vote
there's,
for
like-
it, we don't have a choice. That's
Exactly.
how it works.
And also,
No, we've vetoed games in the past.
it's Xbox 360.
I think if you walked into a GameStop and you said, "Hi, do you have any Kinects anywhere for the Xbox 360?" I think that there is like a 30% chance at least that the employee would say, so you can play Connect Star Wars for the internet?
Could you imagine the gall of someone, though? The gall of saying that to Josh? No, wouldn't happen.